Our guest today is a true hero on many levels. From serving as a surgeon in actual battlefields to navigating socialized healthcare, he's been all over the globe and on every sort of aircraft, yet he's still a down-to-earth guy. Please give a warm and hearty CounterCultureWise welcome to emergency physician, colonel and commander in the U.S. Air Force, and best-selling, award-winning author, Dr. Josh McConkey. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you guys having me on the show.
I appreciate you taking the time to be here. Your book is what we're here to talk about. Weight Behind the Spear, Be the Weight Behind the Spear. As you can see, I devoured this book. Really enjoyed this book. Thank you for the copy.
Love to see those
autographs, so I feel special. So we're going to be talking a lot about this book, but this book has so many juicy stories in it. I think we could talk all day. But before we get started, let's tell everybody where they can find you on the interwebs.
Yeah, so you can go to weightbehindthespear.com. So WEIGHT, weightbehindthespear.com. We've got the socials, Instagram, it's Josh McConkey MD. On X, it's McConkey 007. And then Facebook is just Joshua.McConkey.
I love the 007. That's awesome. Okay,
yeah,
all of
I've
those
had that
links,
a long time.
All of those links will be on our website, counterculturewise.com, as well as the audio and video versions of this, which will be going everywhere. So if you're listening to this later, drop everything, hit like, share, subscribe, all the good stuff, and check out Dr. Josh. All right, so you gave me permission to call you by your nickname that I found in your book, which I loved. Give me a little insight as to where that nickname came from before I just pull that one out of my pocket.
It just the JMac, Josh McConkey, and one of my residency classmates back in Akron, Ohio, just had used that a couple of times, and it just stuck as a resident. That along with my Naperson Nazi nickname that I got.
That one, I have a bookmark there. I want to talk about that one as well.
Yeah,
you and I agree on so many things.
Not a fan of the opiates. I've seen it kill a lot of people. So,
right.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Dr. Josh, let's just start right out with, well, first of all, I mean, kind of an unassuming guy here. You won the 2024 Independent Press Award, your distinguished favorite in the motivational category for this book. You have a 20-year military career. I mean, there's a lot to talk about, but I just kind of want to get out there. But I think the main thrust of this book, besides sharing stories, the things I was most moved by was, first of all, your experience with socialized healthcare. Did you meet your wife in New Zealand?
No, we met in South Florida. So my wife is, Cuban background, Hispanic family. Both of her parents immigrated over from Cuba when they were kids. And just love for travel. She had done time in the Peace Corps. And when I got back from Iraq, I just had a hard time kind of readjusting back to civilian society. And she had an awesome idea. She's like, hey, let's move to New Zealand.
Okay, that's how you ended up in New Zealand. Okay.
Yes, that's how we ended up in New Zealand.
That is drastic. I mean, I drug him from Washington State to Las Vegas and then from Las Vegas out to the middle of nowhere in Texas. But New Zealand, that's a new one. Full disclosure, my baby brother lives just outside of Sydney. So I have been to Australia, but not New Zealand.
Okay.
I would love to go there. So, and it wasn't, I mean, in your book, you said it was because of the Lord of the Rings, kind of.
Well, it's beautiful country. So I'm a big history nerd and movies, the J.R. Tolkien series. And my wife has a minor in art and graphic design. She went to Florida State University, and they studied the South Pacific and just the art of the South Pacific and that Maori culture. It's a very unique culture. They were very successful. I mean, they had a Treaty of Waitangi in, I think, 1847. And so they're very politically active in New Zealand. And it's a huge part of that culture. So that was the big draw for both of us to get down to New Zealand.
It's changed a lot.
Yeah.
It's changed a lot after. All right. There's so many questions I have. I don't even know where to start.
Fire them up.
The idea of the weight behind the spear, what does that come from? I think that'd be a good starting point.
Okay. Yeah. So the concept of the spear is, everybody talks about the tip of the spear, but you're talking about the importance of what's behind that. So give us some insight into how you got your title and basically what that means.
So weight behind the spear, be the weight behind the spear. It's my personal leadership ethos. So as a military commander, I've had a very blessed career. I've got to do a wide variety of like Army, Air Force operations, special operations, was medical director for combat search and rescue. And you work with some really amazing individuals, like tip of the spear type guys kicking
Hmm.
down doors, taking out bin Laden, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
as
True
sharp as that
heroes.
tip gets.
Hmm.
So I can't do that. All right. I don't take lives, I save lives. And for every American out there, they have a huge part to play. No one expects them to jump out of airplanes, kick down doors, but they can be the weight behind that tip of the spear.
Hmm.
Coaches, teachers, volunteers, families, mentors, they help shape this next generation, teaching them the basics of leadership and accountability, things that I think could be done a lot better, which is why I wrote the book. But
Yeah.
in my
Mhm.
life, I get some great stories in there from family and coaches and my teachers that help shape me into who I am. That's what America's best resource is. Those people, coaches,
Mhm.
teachers, mentors, families. That's what we need to focus more on in this country. And that's been my leadership ethos for several years. And it was a
Mhm.
perfect title for the book.
Yeah. So it's really poignant. What I like about it is it's not too long. And then you immediately know what it means. Because there's been
Mhm.
times I've picked up a book and the title's like, where did they get this title? But
Yeah.
yeah, it's really
Yeah.
direct.
So
Yeah,
abstract.
Yeah.
it gets to the point literally. So, yeah.
You mentioned
Thanks.
coaches and mentors, which is something near and dear to my heart because I used to work with national seminars and I taught a coaching
Oh,
and mentorship class. And one of the coaches you brought up was Coach K.
Mhm.
It sounds like he had a huge influence on you. So let's talk a little bit about him and you know your what he did on Ellis Island because I think that is just such a beautiful story.
that story, I took notes with my phone. They wouldn't let us record anything on that. And when you talk about Coach K, the legendary Duke basketball coach,
Mhm.
I mean, he's just almost a godlike figure in Duke. So I was a professor at Duke University, and I worked the games, the basketball games and football games, as the kind of the stadium doc. You've got
Mm.
you've got the kids that are drinking too much. You
Sure.
got the 90-year-olds that are getting stressed out and having chest pain. So
Oh,
just kind of triage and send people to the ER. And so I was next to the band, right in the EMS corner, and so the players and Coach K would be running out every game. Get a high five from Coach K. My brother Nate's a huge basketball fan, a Duke basketball fan. We went to the Duke Michigan game, and he gets the high five, and just a legendary figure. He came and gave a leadership lecture to our residency class. I was a professor. We're doing recruiting, and I thought that they were just doing some crazy recruiting stunt. Like, oh boy, they're going to bring in Coach K. He's going to come in
rah
and
rah.
it's just going to be a rah rah. And here he came and gave a 2-hour leadership lecture that blew my mind. I'm a huge
Oh,
military
two
history buff.
hours.
It was unbelievable. I scribbled so many notes, and a lot of that made that into my speech that I gave at my assumption of command speech when I took command, because it was just that mind blowing. I
Mm,
put that. You can actually watch that. It's on McConkey for Congress is my YouTube page. You can go watch that speech. I've got
okay.
that posted on there.
And we'll talk
And
about your run in a bit.
yeah. And the stories he gave, he's trying to pull together a team of superstars. These guys all made 30, $40 million a year. LeBron James, Kobe
Mhm.
Bryant, all these huge names. How do you pull a team like that together? I mean, what can you tell these guys that's going to make them, buy into a team culture other than,
Mhm,
that they're playing for their country, they want a gold medal, but just these are the best players on the planet.
mhm.
Right.
And Coach
Right.
K tells the story of he made them do some family research, and he made them dig back in their, however many generations ago until they found somebody who had come to the United States, because everybody's an immigrant basically, right?
Mhm.
Unless
Mhm.
you're a Native American, like, or you have
Even
Native
yeah,
American
even they're
ancestry,
even they
everybody
immigrated.
here,
Yep.
yeah, everybody's an immigrant. So they found a person. He takes them to Ellis Island, and they're looking up at the Statue of Liberty, and he just gives this amazing speech tying this all together on that family member. What would that family member think of watching one of their, like, generations down the road, one of their family that they had a part of to come to this country for this American dream is going to play for the United States of America in the Olympics? And then he had somebody play the national anthem while they're
Uh,
looking up at the Statue of Liberty.
yeah. Just
It was
wow.
just mind blowing. And then he says, "When, not if, when we win that gold medal." and those tears start rolling and that you hear this national anthem, I want you to think of this person. And it's some of the most amazing things I've ever heard. And I wrote them, I put some of those stories in the book, but he just exudes leadership. I asked him to write a foreword for the book, and he was not available. So I did get a hold of his staff. I mean, it's not like I knew him well, but I asked him. He was not available for the foreword, but I thought that would have been fun.
Well, maybe for your next book.
Yeah, we'll see.
I mean, if this one was so successful, who knows? You might not even need a next book. Well, let's talk about your run. That you're very patriotic, obviously, and with things that are going on. Remind me what year it was that you ran?
So this year is 2024. I ran in North Carolina's 13th congressional district. Had a packed primary. I was one-on-one with the Democrat. It was the incumbent right now, one-on-one until about October when they drew new lines, and then it became an R+17 district. We had 13 people jump in the race, and there was one candidate that spent $12 million in the primary.
Wanted it very badly.
Why does money?
And it's
money
hilarious.
Win now? It's
It's hilarious because she got to the runoff and then she still lost.
Oh,
So,
no.
I didn't have that kind of money. My dad's a railroader. My grandfather was a railroader. My great grandfather was a railroader. I was the first McConkey to go to college ever in the entire McConkey family. So I did not have $12 million from Daddy Warbucks to get in through the congressional race, but we ran a fantastic race, and getting that message out, I think a lot of people took notice, the right people. And even though we were not successful in that, it gives us a platform now to really talk about these things that really matter.
Well,
right.
yeah,
So what was your
was a
platform?
yeah,
I'm
and-
curious to know what you ran on.
I had it on the 3 S's. It was clear as crystal: security, safety, service.
Amen.
So you talk about security, border security. I can't tell you how many families I have sat down and cried with and had to tell them, I'm sorry, your son or your daughter or one of your parents has died from a drug overdose. You can't secure a border. You can't stop the flow of fentanyl. Unacceptable. And as an emergency physician, I can either just sit there and beat my head against a wall every single day and keep coding people and trying to save lives, or you can get involved with some policy and actually do something about that border. So just security, safety for your kids. We've had several horror stories of parents here just in North Carolina outside of Raleigh that have had some illicit fentanyl overdoses, and those types of things. And then just the service, service matters, leadership matters. I really felt I was probably the best qualified in this race with a military background, national security background, emergency physician. I mean, people in North Carolina and around the country have literally entrusted me with their lives every single day. I make life and death decisions as an emergency physician. And I felt like that really mattered, and it really did. I just didn't have $12 million to blast over the airwaves. So that's unfortunately a big part of politics. So I had to learn that one the hard way.
Yeah, it really stinks that money wins, because that doesn't mean that they're the best candidate.
And in that way, your campaign was a success because you got to people with the message. It's like you've said in your book, you're not always going to win, but it's applying yourself and just you learn things, and you still can teach from it. So
absolutely,
well, I'm going to be a little
losses.
Right. And I'm going to be a little bold and say, sometimes God puts you where you need to be, even if you don't think that's where you're supposed to be, and you don't figure that out till later. So you're supposed to be where you are right now. And most of the time, and I've learned this the hard way, it's not for you. You're not where you are for you. It's a hard pill to swallow.
I've got 100 men and women under my command right now. I take a tremendous amount of pride. It's professionally the thing that I'm most proud of. And I keep doing what doesn't change a thing. I keep doing what I'm doing, and God's got a plan. We just keep trucking.
Well, you're kind of an insider, and we see all the bad press about what they're doing with the diversity and all that stuff. What is your take? What have you seen? Because from what I understand, the military has changed drastically and not for the good. What's your take on that? And you can also say, I don't want to talk about it because I'll get fired.
I got some some very poignant stories. As an active military commander, I was so concerned I ran for Congress.
Okay,
so
that says it all.
When you look at our mission capabilities, our mission readiness, I got I received 13% of my budget request for FY23. 1-3.
Ooh.
Wow.
We had 2 named military exercises. We had a wing exercises, and I had men and women getting ready for a deployment that ended up being right at the end of September, and we all would know what happened on October 7th.
Yeah.
So I was fighting and begging and pleading for money. I did an interview for NBC at a US Transcom exercise in the Pacific Northwest. This was a huge exercise preparing us for the patient movement. What are we going to do with all the casualties? If and when China decides to move on Taiwan, they're probably going to attack our air refueling capabilities in Guam. None of this is classified information, but where will all those bodies go?
We're
So
weaker
we had
now
a
than we've
big,
ever been. It's pretty
yes,
terrifying.
huge exercise with the civilian hospitals around the Pacific Northwest. This is outside of Seattle and Tacoma, along with DOD, VA, National Disaster Medical System. And I'm doing this interview on NBC. And the first question that they ask is this exercise in response to Chinese aggression in Taiwan? I had been prepped the night before and given a 4-page document of things I could not talk about. I could not say the word China. So the current administration was so concerned about hurting China's feelings than actually telling the truth of why we're doing the exercise and actually getting people ready for. Nobody wants war. Nobody wants, a kinetic engagement with China. It's going to be World War II level carnage, and but we're prepping for it, and you have to be ready. And
Absolutely.
That concerned me that they were so
not
concerned
terrifying
about.
at all. Yeah.
Don't say the word China. Don't.
Yeah.
I feel like I was in a Simpsons episode with Homer. Like, don't say China. Don't say China. China.
Yeah.
I,
China,
I couldn't say the word China.
Well, they did the
with all
same
the
thing
other
with
budget
COVID.
issues.
They made it a race thing. It had nothing to do with
Oh,
race, and it's like, why are we not telling the truth? Because we need to know this, and covering
yeah.
it up with, saying, oh, it's racist or whatnot. Come on. It has nothing to do with race. And
Yeah. And what I have, there's a poster when you walk into my squadron. It's right on my door, and I have it posted in the squadron. This is my commander's intent. The first line, I list like what I believe in, what this mission is really about. And the first line on that is, I don't care what color you are, what religion you are, what your sexual preference is, or who you think you know. When you walk into this squadron, you are based on your character and your professionalism. And that is what I love about the United States military. You can come from nothing and make something of yourself.
Absolutely.
Our chief when I took over was an African-American man from Philadelphia. And then you got a white boy from rural Nebraska, and we were an awesome team. We have a fantastic squadron with great morale. It took a year or so to get that turned around because there were some issues. That is what the military is about. And at times I am a little bit concerned that that's not what it is for some of the leadership above me.
That's too bad. Can we fix it?
It doesn't even seem like they have your back at all.
How do we fix this? I mean, can you fix it?
Well, for me, I was so concerned I ran for Congress. I wanted to have some accountability, and I want them to sit in front of me and we'll talk about it. Let's talk about what we're doing and why and how we're prepping for China.
Right.
I really personally had no interest on being in Washington, D.C. It's a cesspool. There's a bunch of narcissist personality disorders, people kind of all out for themselves. I really had no interest in being in Washington, D.C. I am there right now at Andrews Air Force Base, and I know what that's all about, but I have to. Somebody has to be there with some common sense and to hold people accountable. And I was hoping that was going to be me, and I had some big plans, but we're gonna try from another direction. So hence the book, and we'll keep on trying.
All right. Well, who knows? Maybe
never give up, never say die.
Maybe the notoriety from the book, which is incredible, by the way.
Thank
and I'm not just blowing smoke up your too. I really, truly enjoyed the book, and he got into it to the point where I had to like yank it out of his hands. So might ask for the Kindle copies from now on, so we're not fighting over it. But
absolutely. Hey, it's on Kindle. There's an ebook and audiobook out now.
Yes. So. And like I said, all of those links will be on counterculturewise.com. Besides the situation that first of all, 26 years old. I mean, you're just a child, and you're an intern doctor and being pulled in every which decision. I marked this because I thought it was so poignant. When you were first starting, you were on call in the emergency room, and you wrote, the biggest decision I had was whether or not to call for help. And that struck me right between the eyes, because I am a person who really hates asking for help, no matter how desperate. And it's really funny because Jim will like, hey, do you need my help? I'm like, no. And there's like shards of glass surrounding me and, things flying through the air. And I'm like, I don't need your help. When you talk about being the weight behind the spear, all those people are voluntarily there to help the tip of the spear, but you're dealing with people who, like you said, are the badasses kicking in doors and taking out bin Laden and whatnot. When are they able to ask for help, or do we just support them and be that weight? How does that dynamic work?
So that is the art of being a flight surgeon for those types of individuals. They will not ask for help. You have to save them from themselves.
Oh,
They
okay.
will push themselves until they break themselves. They will
Mm-hmm.
push themselves until they kill themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They are just trained and have a mindset, because these are people that have a mental makeup and a physical makeup that individually, like a physical makeup, you're like, wow, these guys are crazy Division One, NCAA, NFL caliber athletes.
Yeah.
Right.
And you put a mental side of it where they're in the top 1% or more of just what human beings can like mentally and physically accomplish, and you put that package together, they're just amazing individuals. So that there's a lot of egos, and
Yeah.
they have a tremendous
Sure.
amount of confidence for good reason, but they will push themselves to their break, and you have to be there to kind of dial them back a little bit, sometimes a little bit more authoritative than they would like, but you have to save them from themselves at time. Everybody has limitations, everyone has mental health limitations, and so they will rotate in and out of some of those really high profile teams. They can't maintain that type of operational tempo more than a few months at a time generally. And so they'll kind of, when you talk about like your SEAL Team 6 and some of these really high tier 1 teams, they rotate in and out of that. It's not something that they can maintain for like 2 or 3 years straight.
I always wondered about
It's
that.
not mentally possible.
Where do they go?
Yeah, they rotate back and forth between other teams and some other assignments, and they have a skill set that allows them to crush absolutely any task you can possibly think of, and they're all self-starters. They all think outside the box. It's working with those types of individuals is amazing.
I've got this mental image of SEAL Team 6, and then they rotate out to quilting Team 5, knitting Team 8, just,
Yeah.
still serving a purpose, but croquet.
Yeah.
So, wow. And the thing is, like you said, they have these egos, but they're also not able to be like, hey, look at me, look at what I'm doing. They're just doing it for the good of the country.
They're too busy concentrating on doing the right.
And they lean on each other.
Yeah.
So when they need help, they're not afraid to ask their colleagues and the people that are part of those teams. I mean, like your medical support, these guys push themselves pretty extreme, and there's a lot of injuries that you deal with, and a lot of unique mental health aspects that take some balancing, but I take a lot of pride in that. I'm not on that team or any of those teams anymore. Obviously, I'm a commander on an aeromedical staging squadron, but just the brief times that I've got to work with them.
Okay, tell me what an aeromedical staging squadron is.
So this is I'm commander of an aeromedical staging squadron right now, and we're based out of Andrews Air Force Base in Washington, D.C. So when you have men and women that are injured anywhere on planet Earth, Department of Defense, any branch of service, State Department, or even sometimes U.S. civilians, they have to be evacuated. So there's medical evacuation around the planet that will get them either back to the United States or back to launch tool Germany, where they've got higher level treatment facilities and surgical capability, Okinawa, Japan, Hawaii, Pearl Harbor. And so they have to be transported. So either before they get on the aircraft or after they get off that aircraft, they are held at an en route patient staging facility. And that's what we do. So we take care of them. We've got, a lot of capabilities for, certainly won't talk anything classified, but numbers of individuals that allow us to take care of them for periods of time to get them safely to and from aircraft to go to different areas of the world. And then we also have critical care air transport, and that's the mobile ICU team. So I was a part of one of those teams, critical care air transport doctor, so physicians, nurses, and respiratory therapists. And we have amazing equipment and backpacks that we throw on and can be anywhere on the planet within 24 to 48 hours, taking care of people with better capabilities than most third world hospitals. So that's
I had no
there's
idea this even existed.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
incredible.
If you Google it, go to CCATT, Critical Care Air Transport Team. You can Google that sometime and just see what pops up. And there's some very unique teams that have tactical and special operations CCAT, and
Oh, videos and
there's
all
some
kinds of things.
oh,
Wow.
it is, you talk about a physician and someone who's a little bit more of an adrenaline junkie, like I am, and with pre-hospital EMS and as an emergency doctor, this is the ultimate team. For
The
me, this is
the logo is kind of badass.
yeah, this mission is the best mission in the entire Department of Defense. I firmly believe that, and it's what motivates me every day.
Yeah, so they took the cat and it
Yeah.
have just fantastic badges. Most of them is the
Black Panther.
Panther. Why could I
Yeah.
not think of the
Yeah.
word
I don't
panther
know.
as the panther? But then they did different versions of it where you have like Simba on the ledge with the plane flying over, and then they have like a little black kitten playing with the medical sign. They obviously you have to have a sense of humor to do.
Oh yeah, I've got some deployment patches that I probably cannot share on the air with you right now.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah, and I did sense a certain sense of humor throughout the book. I think that's what made it so readable, that in the midst of just, I can't even imagine some of the things that you've seen, you've still maintained this sense of humor at it all. We joke because we've been through it in the last couple of years, and we have like this gallows humor that we can joke about things that other people just would not get. Do you find that amongst your
you
staff?
do have to be careful, and you learn that as a resident as well, that you're working really long, intense hours, 36 hours straight. They've changed the residency rules now, of course, but you just lived in a hospital nonstop for years, and you're maybe cracking some jokes, and between the two of you, or the three or four of you that live that lifestyle, if there's patients around or patients' families, it's they don't get that sense of humor. It's not funny to them, and
not at all.
it's and I tried to preface that a bit in the book on just some of the things, but you have to have a sense of humor. It's a really defense mechanism. You won't survive seeing the things that you see on a day in and day out basis without being able to find something to laugh about. It's not morbid. It's your defense mechanism. You can't really physically take that type of stress without having some type of release. And laughter is the best medicine.
Absolutely, 100% agree with that. Let's talk a little bit more about medicine, the state of the U.S. People are constantly complaining about it, and since they've tried sort of to kind of socialize it, it's my personal experience, it's gone downhill like crazy. But you were dealing with New Zealand with socialized healthcare as well as other places, and you have a unique perspective. Oh, I wouldn't say it's unique. You have the perspective that they call us crazy because we know, but you've experienced it firsthand, and that's a luxury. All the socialism and everything that they're trying for, and that the current administration, whoever's, I don't even know who's president right now. I don't think even the president knows who's president right now, and what the new in basically just plug her in and light her up like a light bulb because she's never been elected, never gotten a vote, and that they're just going to install her like a cheap toilet, just like they did the other one. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little political, but I want to know what your perspective is on socialized healthcare, because that's going to be a huge push.
And that chapter that I have in the book, Bernie's Burgers.
Yes, really that I actually have a little flag about Bernie's Burgers. So give us the synopsis of Bernie's Burger.
So in Bernie's world, I used a burger just as an example.
Jim will love this because he's a burger guy.
Bernie and Elizabeth, they love burgers, and they just want to make sure that everybody has access to burgers, but it has to be the same burger because, you wouldn't want somebody to have like a more special burger than another person. And, the best way you can do that is you can get the federal government to just involve. And so they're going to regulate burgers, and nobody else can have any type of burger. There can't be any private burger joints. It all has to be the same burger because that's just not fair. It's about equality. It's not about equality of opportunity. Like they want equality of outcome, where just everybody has to be the same. I call that
So
communism.
equity.
Okay. And
Yes,
so,
that's the word.
but everybody gets the same burger. And whenever the federal government gets involved in anything, like nothing is efficient. More
Mhm.
government regulations. Just as a physician, the things that I've had to deal with, I was kind of jump into medicine again, but the more socialized medicine gets, the less and less and less time I physically get to talk to patients. So when I
Mhm.
started
Right.
medicine in 1999, I talked to the patients, I filled out a paper chart while I'm in the room, and 60, 70% or more of my time, or 75% of my time was like literally physically with patients, doing things, talking to them, examining. Now it's just getting less and less and less. It's all about paper. It's also about electronic health records, which are good to track things, but I spend 80% of my time sitting behind a computer screen. God forbid I forget to check this box or this box on the EKG because now I'm not going to get paid for it. I got paid for it last week, but this week they changed the rules again. Every office literally has someone, they hire 2, 3, 4 people whose sole job is to do nothing but chase Medicare and Medicaid tails because they
Mhm.
keep moving the goalposts.
Yeah.
What you got paid for last month or this week or yesterday is not
Mhm.
necessarily today. They keep changing that just to try to save money, because just like with the burgers, eventually inflation kicks in. We've all seen how
Mhm.
that's happened over the past year. Things
Mhm.
get more expensive. The only way you can control the costs of something where a government entity is running it is to either water down the ketchup or get lower grade quality meat, or I mean
Add
the
soy.
Mhm.
yeah, it never gets better. The government doesn't do anything efficiently
No,
ever.
never. Well,
And
I mean,
so like
other than send billions of dollars to Ukraine, they're
mm,
really efficient at that. But,
and then eventually, just someone who has some common sense, like, hey, you've got Joe over here, and he worked his tail off, and he has his own plumbing business. He makes pretty good money, or maybe his wife works as a teacher. All right, and they have a dual income. Like, hey, I can. How about a sirloin steak burger? I mean, that sounds really nice. I would like
Mhm.
to have a
Mhm.
better. No, everybody's got to have the same burger. It's not fair. Then you talk about the top 1% getting steak sirloin burgers. It's not fair to everybody else. It really kind of just cuts away really what America and capitalism is all about.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
once you start taking away anybody's ability to put themselves in a better position or work harder to have some better things or a better quality of life, that
Mhm.
just it's called communism. It
Yeah.
doesn't work. It's failed time after time after time again. I was raised in rural Western Nebraska. I came from nothing. My dad's a railroader, and I put myself in a great position to take care of my family. And it's because I busted
Mhm.
my tail. I spent every day of my life in a library till about midnight for a decade of my life. And, I've served our military, take a lot of pride in that. And it really kind of
Mhm.
As you
shapes
should.
who I am as a person. And that's,
Mhm.
I just don't have that mentality.
Yeah.
I believe in this country, and I just am concerned that there's some of our leadership that are trying to take us to a direction that I'm not really very comfortable with.
Right. That is a concern that's come up too, is being in the military. They're saying that you're just going to blindly follow whatever person is in office. And, when they talk about, I mean, this is kind of scary waters, and yeah, feel free to say I don't want to talk about it, but they're talking about
Mhm.
civil war. And I
Yeah, I
believe
think
that the current
that.
administration, I'm sorry, I was going to
Go
say, I
ahead. Go
believe the
ahead.
current administration feels that they're just going to say fire on citizens that disagree with us, and that the military is going to say, okay, and do it. And I've
Yeah.
actually talked to an active duty person, and he said, yeah, we would. And that just terrified me.
Oof.
It just
About that.
terrified me.
I think that's what the left tried. They just all the scaremongering stuff. It's
Yeah.
just like they pick a policy, just paint the most extreme, ridiculous thing you can imagine, and just make up some horror story like, oh, this is what's going to happen. If we don't win, and that's a bunch of baloney. So you know, you have to follow lawful orders. And I'm all about the Constitution, and civilian oversight of our military is front and center, and I 100% believe in that. And I follow lawful orders.
Yeah, and
That would
that's the
not
key
be a
word is
lawful order.
lawful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And so we had the
So,
Posse Comitatus Act. So you cannot use federal military for policing actions. That's not allowed. So they're just, it's just a bunch of ridiculousness and hyperbole. They're just making up examples that can never happen, just trying to scare people into voting.
Well,
So
that's
that
that's
doesn't happen.
reassuring.
That's ridiculous. Yeah.
Because I want to believe that men and women in your position, if you were told to do that, or since we've been labeled insurrectionists and all these absolute ridiculous things, and they tell us that we're dehumanizing people by saying, perhaps we shouldn't just open the borders and let anybody and anything in, and then they turn around and call us maggots. It's like, do you not understand what the term dehumanizing means? And they're so, it's
it's the first step in
we're on our
conquering.
fifth attempt at
to
a candidate's
dehumanize.
life. This has gotten completely out of hand, and now we're being told, even I call him the cabbage in chief. I don't even know where he is right now, but there's no way that you would ever win because we have F-15 and nukes. It's like, you are not going to nuke your own country, and
No.
it's just the rhetoric has gotten completely out of hand. So
that violence has no place in American politics. I mean, this is not a Central American country. All right, this is the United States of America. We take that to the ballot box, and I feel very confident. I think that they have pushed things to such an extreme, ridiculous level. I think the majority of people are just gonna, I don't think I'm really comfortable with going that direction. I obviously, just since we've kind of talked a lot about the military service as a commander, I don't talk too much about my kind of like personal politics, but that there's no room for violence, and the rhetoric that they've used has literally led to assassination attempts, on the former president of the United States, and that's unacceptable. That cannot happen. This is America.
And that's regardless of your political stance.
Yeah,
It's just
and
not
they're
exactly.
not. That's the thing, though. They're not letting up. I mean, the very same day that happened, you have this press that, I'm sorry, is no longer a free press. It's just not. Literally calling him, a threat to democracy and this and that. It's like they don't let up, and then they turn around and say, "Oh, he needs to tone down the rhetoric." No, he needs to duck. That's his job right now. Just duck. Tone down what rhetoric? And it's become.
It's gotten way crazy out of hand.
Yeah.
The
Well, I wanted a little bit more about the Bernie's Burgers.
Okay, yeah.
You talk about
far away.
Wait times, because we even hear this from our neighbors to the north. You could have pancreatitis and you're put on a wait list for who knows how long. And you yourself said you saw people expire waiting for that.
Well, I
then
saw
you
people
also-
in extreme pain. If there's something truly emergent, I mean, they have to act. I mean, it's just grossly negligent not to. Although I did see some cases like that where that would never fly in the U.S. because you'd get sued. But our medical legal climate in the U.S. is much different than everywhere else on the planet. But the wait times, so you just look at the VA. If you want to look at some great examples of just socialized, completely government-run healthcare systems, look at the VA. Everyone knows that example. It's been 5-10 years ago where the wait times were getting so long for people getting specialty consultations that they just erased the list and would keep a little paper list, and they just in the drawers, like, oh, they can only be on this list for 3 months. It's been 3 months in a day. Okay, well, let's just take them off the list and put them on the secret list and put that, kind of hide that in the drawer. Just ridiculous things like that.
Yeah, it was insane. It was insane.
Yeah, you have to, when you have socialized medicine, when the government's footing the bill for everything and controlling everything, it is an insane cost expense. The only way they can control that is to limit access to service, extend wait times, or just deny service altogether. And the examples that I will give people, very common, extremely common, women over 40, right upper quadrant pain, gallbladder disease. Happens. I always see 1 or 2 of those every single shift that I work.
And that is insanely painful.
Yeah, it's extremely painful. And the first woman I saw when I was in Australia at Flinders University, this is in Adelaide, it's a professor there, and they have this similar healthcare model to New Zealand, socialized medicine. This woman comes in and she's clearly uncomfortable, and I asked, well, how long has this been going on? She's like, 3 years. I'm like, whoa.
What?
What do you mean 3 years? She's like, well, I've been on the wait list. I'm like, wait list. So wait a minute, let me go talk with one of my colleagues, one of the guys who've been there forever. I'm like, hey, this lady says she's been waiting for 3 years for a gallbladder surgery. That can't possibly be right. He's like, oh yeah, no, it's usually about 5 or 6 years. 5 or 6 years? Are you insane? If this happened in the United States of America, she would have that out either that day or within a day or two, period.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
those types of things, socialized medicine will do like truly emergent things, or just some primary care things fairly well. But if you have
Mhm.
anything actually wrong or anything outside the box at all, and you need like a subspecialist, you're screwed. Like you are waiting for years. But
Yeah.
if you have the private insurance card, that same patient would be wheeled right across the street to the private hospital to be taken out the next day.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
when when they say there's no private system, it has to be all one government, that's ridiculous. Nobody on planet Earth
Mm.
has a solely socialized healthcare. I mean, not the NHS in the UK, nowhere in Europe, nowhere in Australia or New Zealand. There's always a private system because there's always a group of people that have better resources or have worked harder for what they have. They're going to want to have something better. I mean, that's not
Mhm.
acceptable. Waiting for 3 to 5 years to get your gallbladder out where you're excruciating in pain every time you eat anything, that's not appropriate. But because she didn't
Yeah.
have a white count, she wasn't febrile, she wasn't septic, it's just super painful, but you're just gonna have to live with it and just be on the wait list. That's insane.
Yeah.
That will not fly in
That's
America ever.
the, the
Well, the
thing
thing that
about it is there's the people who make these decisions have no don't they're not exactly medical geniuses. They don't know
yeah,
anything about it. It's all about the ideal rather than the reality. And
Nor do they have the healthcare policy that they're advocating for. All those members of
right.
Congress have their own little super fancy special,
that's
get
Yeah,
down
right.
whatever,
I
the
think
really
people forget
concierge
about
level
that.
care.
Yeah.
They get their
Cadillac
hip
service,
replacements,
right.
knee replacements, Cadillac service anytime they want. I mean,
Mm.
yeah, so they don't even have the healthcare that they're advocating for. It's not good enough for them. Why is it good enough for America?
Yeah, it's the same thing with schools. All their
Mm.
kids go to private schools
Hmm.
and everything, and then they try to make laws about
Right.
education.
Right.
And what was that person said the other day? They want to take education out of education. Huh? What is?
So my wife's a teacher, my mom's a teacher, my aunt's a teacher. Both my mom and aunt have retired in the last year or two. The stories that they tell in public school is
Yeah.
just mind-boggling. Uh, it's just painful. It's
Yeah. I did a lot of volunteer tutoring, and then when the pandemic hit, of course, lost my career. So I went to online tutoring, and I got a lot of insight. I got to see how the sausage is made. I've actively avoided being a public school teacher. I totally qualified to do so. I don't think I would survive in that world. And what I see with my kids, and I have kids from all over the continent, um, what level of education they're receiving. There's some really good teachers, and I'm not saying I'm not, hashtag
Mhm.
not all, but the majority of these kids are just left to their own devices. They don't understand. The teacher barely understands the subject. They don't know how to teach. And they're lazy. My goodness. I mean, during the pandemic when everybody's at home and everything's online, these kids didn't even get their work graded. It's like,
No.
well, what else are the teachers doing? They
And they
had
can't fail them. They have to
nope,
give them a
nope.
passing score. They cannot physically. I mean, my mom was telling me, she's a high school teacher.
Mhm,
You cannot fail the kid. They can do nothing. They can have a 0%, have done nothing.
mhm.
You cannot fail them.
Well, I can't tell you how many times I'll have a kid who's been pushed into algebra who barely can do, fractions or basic math, and I'll say, okay, let's go back and let's practice this, and I teach them some stupid ways and little songs and whatever, and all of a sudden a light goes off in their eyes. So they take something that they positively hate, that they've just been shoved along, and they don't understand, which makes them hate it more because they're never successful. And then all of a sudden
Mhm.
they understand a piece of it, and I'm like, okay, and I have this little thing I do. I can teach you algebra in 5 minutes. And what I'll do is I'll bring the mom in. Okay, I'm going to teach you because
Right.
even the moms I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about algebra in 5 minutes. Then the mom gets excited. Then the kid gets excited. And it's like, it took 5 minutes. That's all it took.
Mhm.
And the other thing that I really despise is that a lot of teachers, and I'll use a specific example, factoring. They'll teach you one way to do it. And that's the way you have to do it. And I'll teach them 5 ways to do it. And I'm like, which way does your brain like the most? And every kid is different. Every kid is different. And it's like, as long as you get the right answer, I don't care how you do it. But there's teachers out there that if they decide they want to use, the Australian method or the box method, but they taught them the snowflake method, and that's the only way you're allowed to do it. Well, you're just telling a whole bunch of kids that the way their brain works isn't right. Or there's no options. They don't even know
how to solve the problem.
Yeah.
So I say,
the common,
yeah,
the
and
Common Core stuff was just.
Oh my
I mean,
God!
I couldn't do my son's
Common
homework
Core.
in 3rd grade.
Yeah.
I've done calculus, physics,
Yeah.
bio.
You have to.
I could not do the 3rd grade math. I couldn't
It
answer the
is
questions.
ridiculous.
I was so
Typos
amazingly
and the error.
frustrated.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I have a couple of kids that brilliant, both they're brothers, and I've been tutoring them forever. So I've been tutoring one of them, the older brother, since he was in 4th grade. Now he's in high school, and really smart kid. I mean, in 4th grade we were doing algebra, but of course, they're in New York and have to do Common Core, and so we've been really, really pushing for the school to challenge him. And we did get him into a magnet school where there's a little bit more focus on different things, and he's into robotics and all that. So he's actually starting to do that. But the math, oh my gosh, he loves math. He hates math class. And the way they it's so esoteric and fluffy, and just, it doesn't make any sense. It's like, here, let me show you how you do it. And he's like, I like that method. Why do we have to do this? So what we do is we do all the math, the way, just basically old school math, and he gets it and likes it. And then we go back and we fill in all their boxes and do all their charts and all the stupid crap that, the tape charts, and it's just ridiculous. Can you imagine them doing that to medical school? I mean, are they doing that? I mean,
I finished med school in 2003. I'm sure there's been a lot of changes since then. I mean, you got to have some changes, I suppose. But yeah, I'm the old school guy. Just math is math. I don't know how just math.
Well, no, it's racist now. Did you know that math is racist now? It's gotten ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's absolutely ridiculous. Well, I want to go back to your book a little bit, because I'm sincerely, like I said, I'm sincerely. You talk about starting out, and this is something that I find interesting, is that a current candidate who started out with nothing and made something of himself, and they're actually seeing that as a bad thing now. I'm not sure how we do that, but apparently being successful on your own is seen as bad.
So
and
the American dream is now a nightmare.
Yeah, exactly. You started out selling rocks, and that was, you said, your very first lesson in business and in life. And I want to talk about rock selling, because I think every kid has had a similar experience. For me, it was a little crocheted ice skate pins. And you get a hard lesson, but I think some kids just give up and they don't get the lesson, but you got it. So give us that lesson about selling rocks.
So I was about 5 years old, and my mom lived at the end of a dirt road. So number one, like location. All right.
Yeah, location.
Sell where the people are at. So if there's nobody driving down the road, you're not going to sell any rocks. So that's the most important one. Is like just location. Marketing. How you're going to market those rocks. I shined them up and I cleaned them up, and there's all kinds of different sizes of rocks. And my mom has some great pictures and tells me stories of that. It's oh my goodness, I was so upset. No one is buying my rocks, and I've got a sign. It's like 25 cents, and then crossed out, and then 15 cents, and then crossed out 10, 5. Like, nobody's buying my rocks. Jeez. Oh man, that's a funny story.
So what was your lesson from the rocks? Location.
Yeah. Just,
target market.
Location. You target market and your audience. Have something people want to buy. Nobody really wants to buy rocks. There's no market for rocks.
But then your next endeavor was Ingenious, and you actually made some money. Got a little bit of trouble for that one.
Oh yeah, the candy bars. That was in middle school. So I learned there was a market. The school stopped selling candy bars. And there was a very high demand for candy bars.
Mm-hmm.
So I rode my bike, rode to one of the stores, and would just in a backpack, buy in like 6 or 12 packs, so it would end up being 10 or 15 cents per bar, and then was selling them for 50 cents. making some profit, maybe a dollar or two a day. And for a kid making nothing, that is that is some decent money. And the principal, yeah, had to talk with me, and I think they set up a little sting operation to take me down. Their thought process is, hey, he sees like this, he's probably gonna start selling drugs next or something. I don't know. So I'm sure
Well,
they
I
had
mean,
their
sugar
reasons. But
kind of is a drug, but yeah, you're part of
yeah,
the
but
candy
I
bar
got in
black market.
trouble. They told me I couldn't sell candy bars on school property, and I was still selling them out of my locker. And they set up a little sting operation for somebody to come over and buy a candy bar. It was bizarre, but yeah, selling
Okay, so
candy
that
bars.
was your first experience with the Fed covert operations there,
Yep,
the black market and all that. Um,
yep.
but what was your takeaway from that? I mean, it seems to me like you still took that lesson to the next level and
You know,
got you to where you are
I
now.
ended. Yeah, well, I had a business in Georgetown, Texas. So I had a freestanding emergency department that I was a part of, and just some of those lessons about location. And we had a fantastic location, something that people I mean, higher level quality of care, concierge level care in an emergency department, and then we marketed the heck out of it. We got out there in the communities. We did all the like, school events and sponsoring and Halloween trunk or treats, and we
I
we
love
actually
that.
had an old Humvee that was painted up with the logo for the business and drove that thing all over town. Everyone, it was instantly recognizable, and we had a really good thing going. And just unfortunately, the CEO was a little crazy and started embezzling money.
Yeah,
So,
tell me about this madman CEO that actually drove you
oh
out of the country.
gosh, yeah, interesting character. This guy, he was, gosh, he was right. So we're making great money, and on paper, I was worth a lot of money. So the business is valued. I think he had a valuation like $54 million. I own 10% of that,
Oh,
which
wow.
for a kid from rural Nebraska, I mean, I came from nothing. I was the first kid to go
Big
to
time,
college, so
yeah.
this is wild.
You got
And we just started
the
noticing some discrepancies. So there was
uh,
$90,000 for legal fees, and like, well, what kind of legal fee? What, we don't have legal fees. He was writing off a lawsuit through a different business of his that involved some sexual harassment stuff and a bunch of crazy
no.
things through our business. So we were footing that bill. And then he overcharged us for payroll. It was about 130,000 there, and then towards the end of it, he just jacked $650,000 to say it was like back management expenses. So it was a tremendous amount of money. I called him out on it. What really brought it to a head was I had applied for a national security position on the National Security Council. I'm EMS fellowship qualified, so board certified emergency management disaster medicine, and there was a really cool opportunity. So you sit down, and you have to have a top secret clearance, and there were some questions that I clearly can't not answer because I knew what was going on. And so I
Mhm.
went to him, I was like, listen, I got a security clearance. You can't be doing this. And he went berserk. He tried to bankrupt the company. And that's when he pulled out the 650,000. He controlled the bank account because he had majority ownership.
Oh,
And that's
no.
kind of
Mm.
lesson 101 in Texas business. If you've got the majority shares, you can really do whatever you want. And so we filed a lawsuit to prevent him from bankrupting the company. He offered me a $3.4 million bribe to just walk away. And unfortunately, I have a very, I'm probably stubborn, and I just have an
Darn
integrity
those
that I
ethics.
will not
Darn
break.
those ethics.
So I told him, I was like, listen, like I'm a colonel of the United States Air Force. I will not compromise my integrity for a single penny. You can shove it up your ass. And he got really, really upset because he's been buying people off and doing non-disclosure agreements for his whole career. And he found the one dude that would stand up to him. And so he went berserk. He tried to bankrupt us. And then he actually threatened my family. So I bailed to Australia for a while. The FBI, I got
Physically
involved.
threatened your family? Like,
Yeah, he had some goon from Louisiana kind of walk up to me one day, like, hey, Josh, he knows a lot of very scary people. You better be careful. And I'm like, the hell is that supposed to mean?
wow.
And so I had a concealed carry permit, and I had to walk, I concealed carry everywhere I went. And then he started ramping up the pressure. He starved us out. He refused to make any distributions to like even our paychecks, you know. And it just got super crazy. The FBI, COVID hit, so that froze all the courts. We couldn't get a court date. And the FBI was so much tied up, they said, hey, listen, I don't think we're going to file charges because we're not guaranteed we'll get a conviction. And basically we were screwed, just timing. Like COVID killed everything. And then he started threatening me, and I was like, well, yeah, I was pretty upset. My wife actually sat me down and I was like, Elsa, I'm having some pretty scary thoughts here. Like, I'm not going to put up with this kind of stuff. I'm a military dude. And I think we probably better just remove ourselves from the situation. So, I mean, you threaten my family. I take that very personal. And so we just removed ourselves from the situation because the FBI wasn't helpful at all. And we just went to Australia and things took care of themselves. I ended up losing about $5 million, all said and done. But at the end of the day, my family was safe and my integrity is intact. And he's an evil dude. He'll be in jail someday. It's just not going to help me at all. You know,
So
there's bad guys.
but
There's bad guys out there. You either cry about it or move on with
yeah.
your life, right?
Yeah.
Well, two
I
questions.
can't
Number
control what
one,
psycho guy does.
you moved to Australia during COVID. I mean, they got downright militant there. So what was your
Oh,
experience there?
well, that was another chapter in the book. I mean, that's where you really talk about America is the last bastion of freedom.
Yeah.
I watched a government shut down state to state. You couldn't even travel from state to state. They locked people in Melbourne in a hotel in their apartment complex for 111 days. 111 days. They started doing like the crazy downloading the software with GPS tracking with facial recognition. So they could ping you anywhere at any time and say, ping, hey, you've had an exposure. Scan your face and give this your GPS coordinates. You're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Well, who, when, where? Oh, we can't tell you
They
that.
went full China, full China.
I'm like,
yeah.
whoa. So I'm just going to scan this. So now they got your facial recognition. So anytime they ping your phone, you have to scan your face so they know it's you. And then it's got the GPS so they know where your phone is. If you're more than like 50 meters from wherever they told you to be, instantly arrested, no questions asked.
That is horrifying.
Like, whoa.
In the 21st century.
And the sad thing is the people did it. They didn't revolt. I would have told them where to go in about 12 languages.
So that's where, you know, for me as an American, and there were a lot of people were kind of looking to me to see what my reaction was going to be. And I basically, the final straw was when they locked down a grocery store in Adelaide. They had secret police go in there and they basically made everyone prove to the plainclothes police officers that they checked into the COVID tracing app when they walked into this grocery store. And if they didn't, it was a $1,000 spot fine and a $10,000, or I think a $20,000 fine for the grocery store for not forcing people. There was no COVID in South Australia. So they were doing it just to show that they were the boss and you got to follow the rules and that they could do it. And then when my wife's cousin was dying, she tried to get back for the funeral. And my wife is Hispanic and that family is it's everything to her. Her cousin and her were raised together, basically like siblings, because his mom died real young of cancer. And the Australian government told me that if she left the country, that they would arrest her and it would be a $60,000 fine. And I said, hey, listen, you know, I'm an American citizen, and I'm telling you, I'm not asking you. She's going back, and it was not going well with the Australian authorities. And so I basically talked to some colleagues, and I actually sent an email out to the emergency department groups. Listen, I know I'm just the a-hole American here, but I'm telling you guys, you got to get your government in check. This is crazy out of control. Benjamin Franklin said those who would give up, you know, a liberty for security deserve neither. You can't. I mean, I know they say they're doing it in the name of like security, but they just completely neutered their citizens. I would never have imagined. I never actually wouldn't even believe the stories had I not physically been there and seen it. And this is a Western civilized country. This is Australia. This isn't North Korea or Russia or Cuba, right? This is Australia. And so for me personally, I feel like America is probably one more pandemic away. You know, people were giving up their rights so quick,
so easily,
COVID,
tattling on each other.
It's like, listen, I'm not okay with that. And so that, you know, just these types of reasons were why I was running and why I kind of do what I do and wrote the book. And hey, these are my personal beliefs. I'm an American and I believe in freedom. So, I mean, if that's a bad thing, I think it's crazy.
It's not a bad thing. It's an amazing thing. And you are an American hero. And I'm so glad with all the bad things we hear that we, you know, we get to meet you, that you know, you give us hope, because we don't get to hear people from people like you. We don't get to hear that anymore, and we need to. We need to
I
get
got
that
a
out
bit
there.
emotional when I started reading it because I thought we'd pretty much given up, and it's like, well, no, there are still some voices saying we can turn this around. It's going to take time and effort.
Oh, yeah, we
but
can.
a lot. Gone on to some of these other things. Why should teachers, family coaches, mentors step up? I know this is a crucial time, but
Oh,
a lot of people feel hamstrung by, maybe their own mental limitations, but also governmental limitations, that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, this kind of dovetails on what we were just talking about,
Yeah.
because leadership post-COVID is a different animal. And you specifically had a talking point about that I'd like you to go into.
yeah. So if we have to hand the keys to this country over to this next generation at some point, is that 20 years? Is it 30 years? With what we see right now, I don't know anyone who feels that, like, yes, this generation is ready. They are ready to go. They clearly are. We shut them out of their, so during the most critical and formative years in their development, shut them out of their schools. We shut them out of their churches. They can't communicate with each other than over their phones and their iPads. They lack a lot of very just basic critical skills that, for them to be successful as future leaders on a world stage, it's going to take some work. So if we don't get involved right now, we are going to, I talk with business owners as well, because, like, well, what does this have to do with business owners? Well, let me tell you. So
everything.
This generation is going to be coming to you looking for a job out of high school or out of college. I mean, we're basically the college age graduates now. This is your COVID generation. This is your problem, whether you know it or not. In 6 months or a year, this is your problem. Do you want to wait until it becomes your problem and it's almost not fixable? Or do you want to get involved right now and go volunteer in your church or your school, or go coach some little league or soccer or something? You just kind of teach some mentorship and some of these basic skills, have some of that involvement now. Because if you wait till they're coming to you as a business owner, when I owned my business in Texas, this generation, oh my goodness, just completely lackadaisical, not giving 2-week notices. Like, literally, there was one example.
Or if they show up at all.
Oh yeah, if they showed up and they just wouldn't think twice about it. Like, oh, I don't, I'm going to go to a concert. I'm not going to show up today. Like, well, so are you quitting, or you're just not showing up? Like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm just going to quit. Well, you have to give us 2-week notice, or I can't give you a letter of reference. Well, what's a letter of reference? If you ever apply for a job again, I cannot give you a letter of reference if you don't at least give me a 2-week notice. Oh, well, my concert's like tonight, so I'm just not going to show up when I quit. Okay. 6 months later, they call up again. Can I get a letter of reference, or can I have my job back?
No.
No, you can't. You wouldn't even give me a 2-week notice. Like, it's not connecting. The dots aren't connecting for these kids. And those are just some examples, but we have a lot of work to do. That's our
and the
job.
worst thing
Your
is
job, it's my job.
Yeah, they've been trained to be narcissistic. So in his mind, you're the bad guy. You're it's your fault. And they don't make that connection. Yeah.
It's so terrible.
And that's our fault as a generation. And I'm going to go all the way back to the boomers. First of all, they need to let go. Okay. Gen X, we don't even exist. They just blipped right over us. Like, we're not even, we're not in anything. They just blipped over us, and they're still hanging on. We've got 80, 90, 100-year-old people in office. It's like, this is ridiculous. You have to pass the baton at some point, and they won't. And apparently the way we were raised is, well, basically we raised them and ourselves. So we're so busy just trying to keep, all the balls in the air. We're like, okay, well, hopefully, the kids will do it. But, the hippies, they just, we have no skills. We have no, we don't have the mentors that we used to have. And I'm probably going to get in trouble for this, but as a tutor, whenever I have a student and I see what their aptitude or their interest is, and I ask them, what are you thinking about doing? And they tell me what they want to do. I literally discourage them from going to college. I said, okay, here's what you do. You find somebody who is good at, whatever it is you want to do. And
trade jobs. My dad's an
dive under
electronic
their
technician.
wing. Yeah.
Yeah.
You find yourselves a mentorship.
Good
You'd be
money
an
in
intern.
those fields.
You know, forget
Have you
college.
guys hired a plumber at all in the last couple of years?
They're insanely
Those guys are
expensive.
making way more money than I am.
And that is the exact example I use. My sister went to high school, and one of her boyfriends that she had during that time, he didn't go to college. He worked as not an intern,
Apprentice.
apprentice. Thank you, for a plumber.
Yeah.
Okay, barely graduated high school, but he's a smart guy. Became an apprentice plumber, learned the trade, has his own business, is a millionaire now. Meanwhile,
Yeah, good for
we owe-
him. That's the
we owe
American dream
student
right there.
loans. Yeah, we owe student loans and can barely pay rent. You know, it's like, no,
Mhm.
think about what you want to
Yeah.
do. And if you don't, if you don't want to be a doctor or a lawyer, which you have to go to school for, but you want to learn a trade, and real estate, plumbing, electrical, whatever,
Railroaders. My entire family are
Exactly.
railroaders.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
God bless them. The
Mhm.
entire nation was built by these guys. Do that, and that's what we used to do. We used to have mentorships and interns and all these things, and now it's discouraged. It's all about college, college, college. Well, because all they learn in college is white men are bad. This every diversity, equity, blah blah blah. I mean, I graduated from the University of Washington many years ago, and even back then, I was up for writing awards, and my teacher took me aside and he goes, "Okay, well, you basically win, but we can't let you be the winner because it disagrees with the politics of the school." And it was kind of a benign writing assignment, but it actually said something about America being good, and you're not allowed to say that. It was really funny in my some of my writing classes, and I can't remember the name of it, but the classes now, they're like, development, something in the women's studies of the something, 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 something. It's not like Math 101 anymore. It's like a 6-paragraph long title. And basically the answer for every single question in that class, no matter what the question was, the answer was penis. I mean, literally, that's,
God.
what's the fall of,
Sounds
national.
bizarre.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. It just men are bad. And so these kids come out with no structure, with no knowledge, they actually come out dumber. And there has been studies proving that students enter with a certain IQ and literally come out of 4 years of college with a lower IQ.
And this is without not even taking into account the lack of social skills that they're taught these days.
Yeah, and we literally have students at Berkeley praising censorship. Those two are opposites.
Berkeley was the
well, and then they strap them with so much debt that they can just keep them in the box and just control the narrative because they step outside the box. They're financially owned.
Mm-hmm. They are. Right. And whoever thought that compound interest and student loans should go together? That is an evil person who I hope is burning in the fiery pits of hell, because of the one thing that you should not put compound interest on, it's education. And so I actually discourage students. I think so. What, as far as your education goes, when did your doctoring and your military, did you get your education through the military, or did you get your military through your education? What was the dynamic there?
Yeah, so I had a scholarship for undergrad, so it was very blessed there. Just worked my tail off and got a scholarship to pay for college. Went to Chadron State College out in rural western Nebraska, same college as Tim Walls.
Oh, wow!
Of which,
okay,
Tim Walls was my high school teacher.
Nuh-uh.
Seriously?
Yes.
Wow.
Okay, Dish.
I need to
know. Give me some dirt.
So go check out some of the videos. I was on Carl Higbee Frontline.
I'll be darned.
I was like, you guys, he was my teacher in high school. They're like, are you serious? Be on at 5 o'clock. So I just gave some stories there. Was the football coach. He was my world geography teacher as a freshman. He was sociology as a senior. And then his wife, Gwen, was my 10th grade English teacher for 2 days.
Wow.
She had a life-size, this is rural western Nebraska. I'm a 10th grade kid. I don't know anything. But as a 10th grade kid, for 2 days, she had a life-size cardboard cutout of Hillary Clinton in the back of her classroom. I mean, just wow. This is 1992. All about it. Just loves Hillary. Like, early days of indoctrination in our public school systems. I mean, I didn't
Wow.
know anything. I just knew I was extremely uncomfortable. I went to the principal of the school. His name was Dick Bonus, and I told him, like, "Hey, I don't think this is right." That was his name, Dick Bonus. Sorry, that was his name. He's the principal, and yeah, rest his
His
soul.
mama
He's
needs to be
passed now.
slapped for that one.
Yeah, it's all
Wow.
right. And I just said, "Hey, listen, I'm going to be in your class. Or I'm going to come to your office every single day. Because this is not appropriate." And he put me into Mrs. Nelson's class. So I finished 10th grade English the whole rest of the year in Mrs. Nelson's class. And so I told that story. And, you know, Tim Walz, he didn't really talk a whole lot of politics at that time at all, because it was a football coach, and he was a fantastic teacher. I mean, he really
Was he a
was.
good teacher?
I really enjoyed him as a teacher, very genuine, cared about students. And, you know, obviously, I think you got to change who you are a little bit when you make that political jump. Like, I've tried not to, but I mean, you do have to play the game. And then when he became governor, I've talked with lots of people from Minnesota, because I still work in the Midwest. I fly out to Omaha and work one of their emergency departments. There's tons of people from Minnesota, and it's a pretty common thing. You know, he just took a super hard left turn when he
Yeah.
became the governor, and I mean,
Literally
the
firing.
votes are in the votes are in
Literally
Minneapolis.
firing on his
So
own people if they were on their front porch after curfew. I mean, I saw the videos.
yeah,
I didn't I honestly could not believe the story until I witnessed it. I, and they want that
yeah.
in the presidency. I mean, so
It's been interesting seeing them plastered all over the news networks on somebody that you've known for 30 some years. And I met with him in 2017 at a national security conference. I was there for the national security course for the military, and talked with his military liaison. Hey, I'm one of his students, and he actually talked to him for about an hour back in 2017. And he's still, well, at that time it was pretty genuine. He remembered me. He remembered my brother. My brother was got in a lot of trouble. So Tim Walz knew my mother extremely
oh
well.
dear.
She was in there a
Okay.
lot with my brother, but just the politics. My goodness, I couldn't disagree more.
Do you
Yeah.
think that the politics ruined him as a person? Do you think he's still in
No,
there?
oh, he's still in there. It's but his wife, it was just a really super political motivated one, and
Mm.
just kind of my personal beliefs. This is just me. But his wife was is all is running the Clinton playbook. So she was a
Well, she's a dead
huge.
ringer for Hillary.
Oh yeah,
She
yeah.
looks
Well,
like her.
she
Her
was
mannerisms,
she's
the way
a
she talks.
protege for Hillary Clinton. She had a
Yeah.
cardboard life-size cutout of her in the back of her classroom in 1992, and she's running the Clinton playbook, and she's gonna kind of push him all the way to the White House. And uh, there's a lot that's come out here over the past few months that are probably a little surprising to me as well. But I know he was a fantastic teacher. I really enjoyed having him as a teacher. The politics. I'm sure he's changed a
That's
bit in
too
that
bad.
respect.
That's
But
too
'cause he's
bad
from rural
because
Nebraska. He's from West Point,
yeah,
Nebraska.
yeah.
Right, right.
I don't know.
Same stock, right?
Yeah, that's too
Yeah.
bad because you know him, as I mean, we talked about this earlier, humanizing people, you find out, oh, they were
Mhm.
actually a human being once.
Of
But
course.
okay, so this is a touchy subject. What is your take on him calling himself by a different rank multiple times? And,
Yeah.
they're going I don't like the take that we're insulting his service because that's not what's happening.
Mhm.
We're just saying, well, if you're
No,
willing
he should be
to,
proud of his service.
yeah,
He's
but if
served
you're
for a long
willing to
time.
lie about that, and they talk about stolen valor and this and that, and pretend that you were in, I mean, you were literally in places where you probably got shot at, and he's alluded to
Yeah.
it and pretended, and just like Biden saying that he was marching in the, he never did, he was never there, he never got arrested,
Yeah.
and people don't hear the truth. But you,
I was as a
what is your
military
take on
member.
that?
Yeah, someone who's served in combat. I've carried body bags of American heroes. I pulled them off the battlefield, put them on helicopters. Cried. Um, I was really disappointed. So everybody knows you can't retire at a rank until you've held it for 3 years. And I'm sure there was kind of lots of excuses, and he really kind of pushed that he was a command sergeant major, the highest ranking enlisted guy in the history of Congress. But I mean, he retired a master sergeant. And
Yeah.
then just the
And which
comments
is a
of, all
lie.
these
Yeah.
weapons that I carried in war. You're never in combat. I don't discount anybody's military service. I mean, he took the oath.
No.
I mean, he signed up. He would have died for this country if it had been called upon. But you can't say you did things that you didn't do, and
Right.
and he capitalized on that politically. I mean, he said
Well,
those at campaign
as-
events, and then he actually never did the PME, the professional military education, to get to that rank, which would have kept him from retiring at that rank as well. Those things matter, and so that's kind of concerning. It's disappointing for
yeah,
me, but
yeah, and
maybe there's some reasons there. And then bailing on his unit a couple of months before they deployed. I'm sure there's a backstory there that maybe we don't know about, or he doesn't talk about. I don't want to second guess that, but that's just not something I would be comfortable doing myself. So I
Yeah.
well, especially in a
I don't know.
situation like this where it's so easily disproven. His
Mhm.
colleagues, you certainly don't operate in our armed forces in a, you're not working by yourself. You're surrounded by
Mhm.
people, and
Well,
when you're in
that's
a
a senior level position too. Like you
Mhm,
cannot bail on your like me as a commander. If
mhm.
we're getting shipped out and I'm just like, oh hey guys, peace out. I'm gonna duck out and retire on this one. Like, whoa. I just personally
Yeah,
disagree with that. I couldn't do that.
sure,
So
sure, fair enough.
Yeah, and they're trying to say he didn't know, but he
yeah.
knew. I mean, he was in a position where
Mm.
he would be the one who knew. So
Mhm.
You were the command
very,
sergeant major of the National
yeah,
Guard. I guarantee you he
yeah,
knew.
yeah, he knew. Well, I don't want to
So
talk too much about other people. I want to bring it back to the book before I let you go.
yeah,
I
thanks.
first of all thank you so much for being such a great guest. Oh my gosh, we could talk for 3 hours, but
We
we had to
could.
turn off the AC, so we're going to start asphyxiating.
Thank you.
Texas,
First of all, congratulations on your best-selling book, winning multiple awards. It is, folks,
it's
get
one hell
this
of a
book.
read.
It
It
is
is
one
really
heck of
good.
a read. The stories in it are fantastic. As you can see, we just barely grazed the tip of the iceberg. Um, he has a lot in here about coaching, respect, American way, why socialized healthcare is a really bad idea, that we all knew that. And but he doesn't get negative.
No,
I just want to share the very, very ending, and then I'll let you have the last word. You actually end your book with a quote from Abraham Lincoln that we are all familiar with, but I want to read because this book offers us hope and it gives us guide. My biggest complaint is like, okay, I want to fix it, but I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I mean, I see this problem. I see this need. I want to jump in. I want to do something, but I don't know what. You give us some what's in here. And I hope people will read this and extrapolate what you're trying to say here. And the overarching idea is we need to teach our youth. We need to mentor them. We need to guide them. We need to be that weight that pushes them forward, be the weight, make them the tip, make them important, but make them know that they are supported. So I want to read this last quote, and then I'll let you say whatever it is you want to say, and I'll shut up.
Thanks.
It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. November 19th, 1863. I mean, we're all familiar with that speech. It's just such a great ending to the book, though, because so many of us have been blackpilled to the point where we think the nation is, I mean, I see it almost on a daily basis. That's it. It's over. we're a failed nation. You don't believe
They
it.
want you to
And
they want you to give up.
yeah,
that's true.
you don't believe that. And you have been the tip of the spear. So as a person who is literally the badass, the tip of the spear, but you've also
Uh,
been the weight behind it. Just give us a final thought before we say our goodbyes. What
uh,
do you most want to get out there?
what you do every single day matters. You have an impact on everybody around you. This generation needs your help. your level of engagement, it's something different for everybody. For me, it's been, I've done the military, I've been a commander, I coached Little League soccer, I coached baseball, get involved in your schools, your churches, some mentoring programs. This could be something different for everybody, but just start off with the most simple thing. Sit down with your kids, just have dinner at night. Just sit down and have dinner with your children a couple of nights a week. Life is busy. Everyone's pulled a million different places. I know we've got 5 different events for 3 kids to be to every week. Just sit down and have dinner with your children. It lets them know, 1, that you actually care, taking that time. 2, it builds confidence in them. Ask them what went good, what didn't go good. Is there some decisions that we could have made that would make that outcome a little bit better or different? Or could we have changed that? Control what you can control. You can't control the people, but you can control how you react to things. Just that simple sitting down for a family dinner means everything to your kids. So just start right there. Just have family dinner. That's all you got to do.
Oh, that is a great idea.
Fantastic.
Well, Dr. Josh McConkey, first of all, let's remind everybody where they can find you on the interwebs.
Yeah. Waitbehindthespear.com, WEIGHT. Waitbehindthespear.com, and Instagram, X, Twitter, Facebook, all the socials, and just I need your help to get this message out. So thank you so much for having me on.
You bet.
It
And
was
all
a
of those
genuine honor and pleasure, Josh.
all of those links will be on counterculturewise.com along with the video and audio. If you are listening, please make sure you give us a 1,000,000,000-star review. If you did not enjoy this interview, just give us 5 stars. I mean, that's insulting, but we'll settle for that. But don't do 1 or 2 because that's lazy. Do 5. Like, share, subscribe, pass this out, get his book. Dr. Josh McConkey, you've been an amazing guest. Thank you so much for spending an hour and a half with us. And God bless you, Godspeed, and we will pray for your family. May you always be in a position, and if you ever run for office in Texas, I will vote for you. So,
all right.
I'll be on your campaign staff.
Yeah, I probably would. I'd be out there taking the slings and arrows. I'd be in front of the spear. I'd be I'd be that one.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And when you publish your next book or run for office, hit us up again because I would love to talk to you again. And thank you so much for spending time with us.
Hey, thank you very much. God bless you guys as well. And have a great rest of the week.
You too. You too.